I hope.
Hi, everyone. This is CricketSong with Inner Wisdom, and you're watching another episode of Wyrds, Witches, Witchcraft. And I'm here with my usual co-host, Obsidian Fire. Say hello.
Hey, bonjour tout le monde. Je suis encore endormie comme d'habitude. Vous commencez à le savoir maintenant. Donc, je suis la co-animatrice de CricketSong pour cette saison. J'espère que le sujet que nous allons aborder aujourd'hui va vous plaire. N'hésitez pas à participer, même après le show. Et voilà.
And tonight we're talking about witchcraft around the globe, I believe. Yeah. Witchcraft around the globe. So if you are in chat and you have questions as we continue to discuss our topic, please feel free to ask. We will answer questions that are related to the topic at hand. And then maybe if we have time at the end of our discussion, we can answer other questions. But we'd like to kind of keep it on topic for tonight, witchcraft around the globe. This was a topic that Obsidian Fire suggested we cover. So I'm going to open it up to you to begin, Obsidian. Hey, everyone.
Hey. Yeah, it's kind of a waste that I am so tired to talk about this because I was sick this week. So okay, so yeah, I suggested this topic because it's kind of fascinating the way witchcraft traditions are evolving and how they come from, where they come from, around the globe. Because when you look at it more in depth, it's like what Benabel was saying in the last episode. In the end, you realize that there is a lot of points in common between traditions that seems to be very different and very apart one from another. But in the end, there is a lot of things that joins. See?
Yeah,
what I mean?
Yeah, that even though people practice very differently on the outside, the key elements to what we're doing are similar.
Yeah. Let's say, for example, elements, precisely. The earth, the air. It's something that we can find almost everywhere, I think, in almost every tradition. And of course, the spirit world is something that comes again and again. There is tradition doesn't involve any of the spirit realm. I don't know how you say that. You know, the way of practicing, which is very earth to earth, if I may say. How do you call this particular kind of practice?
Like an earth-based practice? Is that what you're talking about?
Which is very pragmatic,
very practical, very like more folk magic, where you're more focused on like low magic or folk magic, really focused on things that affect the physical realm, as opposed to maybe magical practices that really focus on enlightening one's spiritual self.
Yeah, folk magic, that was the word I was searching for. Even in folk magic, there is often a consideration about elements, even if there is no spirit realm or world or spirits involved into it. So that's interesting because every kind of tradition comes around from different parts around the globe. So how is it that it seems we all linked together by some kind of point of focus, even if we didn't met and our tradition didn't seems to not rejoin at any point. It's interesting, I think, to note that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and honestly, I think that's because we're basically, like I said, practicing the same thing, but in different ways.
Yeah, I agree too. Some people may argue that in the ancient times, the men didn't know science or not much of science, and then they needed an explanation to the natural phenomenon, and then they invented some kind of magical reasons and all and all. Okay, so that might be the explanation for scientific mind, but I don't agree with everything. I don't agree totally with that. Of course, there were need to explain things and to make uncontrollable. How do you say that? The things you can't control.
Yeah, uncontrollable.
Like, yeah, things more bearable for people when in ancient times. I mean, when there were difficult weather, you needed to understand why your how do you say that? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm searching for my word. If the weather destroyed the culture you made, you need an explanation,
right?
To support the fact, to bear with, to cope with the fact you didn't have anything more to eat.
Right, right.
You see, but I don't agree that everything comes from this need to understand and to cope with the world. I think that a different tradition in witchcraft doesn't only rely on that, and that doesn't explain every similarities that there
Right.
is. I don't think so.
Well, I
don't
think
think
some of it too is not only were if we go back all those years, man was not only trying to explain why things occurred, but I feel like man was also trying to understand their role within the greater sense of nature and
Mhm.
what is my place within this, what is my relationship to what's going on. Not only why did that lightning bolt strike that tree, or why is there thunder, and why are the land flooded. Trying to explain that is one aspect, but I think trying to explain their humans' role in everything and their relationship to everything, I think was another reason why some of these things occurred.
I agree. I agree. There is more a question about how how do we fit in
Yeah.
the great view of nature, and why are we there, I think. And then it appears that there is a lot of similarities, a lot of it, a lot of it. Even if the type of witchcraft comes from such different paths, like voodoo, which is African in the first place. But I mean, like closer than me, you can go to Romania, which has very long and very strong tradition of witchcraft. You know that. I think actually, I don't want to say stupidity there, but I think nowadays there is still political men and men on the government that who fear the witches in Romania. And when one make a statement, don't do that, I will curse you, they withdraw. They're more in fear than in France, for example, which is considered to be just childlike things, stupidities. A lot of people here says they don't believe. They says, which is not exactly the same thing as they don't believe. They say they
So
don't.
they say they don't believe, but they probably do believe because they're still afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. They're still afraid. They're still afraid. And there is very strong superstition, I think.
Superstition, yeah.
Yeah, very, very strong superstition. And in here, if you ask people, they will all tell you that they don't believe, they don't, it's a whole pack of bullshit and everything. But the one of the most profitable activity in France is to be what we call here voyant, la voyance. Because underneath this term, you realize there is the people put everything about witchcraft in it, about witchcraft and mediumship and everything like this. And this is a very, this is a way you can make money easily, unfortunately, because there is a lot of scammers. But if no one was believing in anymore in magic or anything like this, or in witchcraft, or why this particular activity is making so much money?
I agree.
Because because they say they don't believe, but they do. They are in fear. So here, the way of practicing, just because of this, is very different from, I think, another country, closed country, because it's like all behind closed door. So the way we practice here differ a lot from Romania, where it is very out there. It's a common thing, and everyone knows about witchcraft, and it is followed, and people trust and believe in it. So necessarily, it is not the same tradition or path, because here we need to hide, and there they don't.
Do you think both are affected by Christianity too, or do you think, like the witches in France are more influenced by Christianity, and maybe those in Romania are not?
It's a good question. I don't know enough about the history of Romania, but I think they were um, hit hit by the Christianity thing as well as we were. But in history, France was known as the first daughter of the church.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it involves a lot of weight about Christianity in people's life, because of the way the kings and the other were acting about this. Here, Christianity made a lot of mess. I was searching for a word not too offending, but yeah, Christianity was forced on people from the very beginning. It was forced upon the people, and so obviously it did impact really strongly the people. I don't know exactly about Romania, but it's not that far from us, so I think it had also an impact, but maybe not as strong as it was here. Yeah.
Because I can imagine that if you were in a country where Christianity wasn't so prominent, that the witchcraft, in a country where you were sort of able to practice just out in the open, may give the practice itself a different style,
Yeah.
than those who were forced to either disguise it as a form of Christianity,
Yeah.
or hide it completely.
Yeah.
You know, because then if you have people who are hiding it and they're still practicing in their home, but in secret, as opposed to families or groups of people that could practice out in the open in their home, you're going to have more communication. You know, if you're able to talk about it and you're not afraid to talk about it, or people look at it and they accept it, you'll have more communication, and maybe you'll have influences from other witches, as opposed to, you know, hiding it and not being able to openly talk about it and being afraid to be caught. Then you're not really going to be able to, you know, share your practice.
Absolutely. And then I suppose, and I think it's easier to make it grow if you can share. There is more energy to feed upon if you can share, if you're out there, instead of being that secluded, to be, as you just said. And then again, if there isn't much of exchange, there is also a possibility that your path will kind of be stagnant, because you will just be with yourself doing your thing, and you cannot talk about it, you cannot share with anyone, so you cannot really learn, because it's not just a question about talking. It was a question about everything. You could not read anything, search for anything, even if you were at a point in, I'm sure you already know, but at some point in the past, here and around here in France and kind of in England and probably in Germany and in Europe, in this part of Europe, you couldn't have a black cat, and just even if it wasn't yours, if a black cat was seeing, you know, living his life around your home, you could be accused of witchcraft and you could end at the stake just by that. So imagine there was no way of talking about, reading about, exchanging about. No way. All this path was really crushed under Christianity here. The impact was very heavy, very strong. And you can sense that still nowadays. You can sense it. You can sense it. Yeah, I agree. I see a comment in the chat about the black cat.
Yeah.
And I agree. So obviously it induced through times huge difference between in a country like mine. It's very different from a country like Romania, or let's say again with voodoo, because it's a well-known tradition, where it was out there all the time, and it is still, and it continued to grow, instead of here where it was and it still is held behind closed door. It doesn't evolve the same way. So it does not at all.
And here in the United States, it really depends on what area of the country that you're in as to whether it's more acceptable now than, you know, other places. So I can tell, just being in Massachusetts, and this is just from my experience, you could be a witch and not really have a lot of negative connotations as to being a witch. While there's a very large Christian population in Massachusetts, there were still a lot of areas where, you know, Salem is in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
is in Massachusetts. So, you know, finding other witches wasn't too difficult of a thing to do. Now, here in Seattle, in Washington, Washington is a pretty big state, but just in the Seattle area, I find that there are more New Age people who are more with the New Age movement. Not to say that there aren't witches, there are definitely witches here, but I find that there are a lot more people that I've met who align more with a New Age vibe. I have not met that many Christians. I know there are Christians here, but for example, in the city I lived in Massachusetts, there was this one street that had 7 different churches on one street. And the street is not a very long street, but there were seven different churches on that one street. They were all Christian, of some sort of Christianity. Here, where I live now, there is a street that has, I think, 3 churches on it, from my house down to the mall. One is a Korean Catholic church, which I'm really curious about. Korean Catholic. One is a Congregational Protestant, and the other one is some sort of Christianity. I'm not sure what kind of Christianity they practice, but it's different. And the people that I've met, some of them are, yeah, I'm Christian, but they're like more agnostic, meaning that they definitely believe there's something out there, but they're not quite sure what it is, but they do believe there is some sort of God thing. But I haven't met, unless I went specifically looking for someone who practices witchcraft. You know, there's one apothecary that I can think of that is definitely witchy. That's not too far from my house. There's a few New Age bookstores, so that's a very prominent thing. And there's another store that is definitely witchy, but they also have a lot of New Age stuff too. So, you know, it seems like there's a lot of Reiki and a lot of crystal healing and a lot more of that kind of stuff than specifically witchy.
Yeah, it's the same here with time and with the influence of other country around the mine, like Switzerland, for example. The New Agey stuff made its way into the common view of people. So it is acceptable to talk about crystal, Reiki, and energy healing, and it became acceptable. But it's not exactly the same thing as witchcraft. Here, don't go out there and tell people you are a witch, because you will probably first encounter laughter, and you will be make fun of. And in a second time, you will find that people will start to avoid you altogether, you and your family, because they're afraid. So out there, they will say that you're nuts, you're crazy, and in fact, they will just avoid you because they are in fear. But you can go around and talk about Reiki and things like this. But it's not exactly the same thing as witchy thing. It's not exactly. So, and here, when you were talking about the 7 church in the same street, which is a lot.
It is a lot. And I counted them. And I don't think any of them are the same type of church either. Like, you know, a Baptist, there's Jehovah's Witnesses, there's Greek Orthodox, there's a Roman Catholic. I mean, and you keep going. Oh, wait, there might be 2 Roman Catholic out of the 7. But you keep going down and they're like different denominations of Christianity. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't think, maybe there is a street or a place like this in France, but I don't get to know it. But from my experience and what I know, I can't say I know, about my country, there is more Roman Catholic church than anything, everywhere. In the town I was born in, it is still known under the name the town of the 100 church, if I may say.
Really?
Yeah, because there wasn't 100, but there is a huge lot of churches, all Roman Catholic. Oh, there is a cathedral, and there is, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 churches around, which is a huge bunch. So there wasn't so much place for something else, for another, let's say, spirituality views. Even Protestant, because it led to a really hard war in France and around France. It was a very long war and a very bloody war. So between Catholic and Protestant, it was a huge thing, a huge thing. So you can imagine if there is that much of a conflict over just different views of the same faith.
Yeah.
What could happen with the rest of it?
Right.
You can imagine, and that was in 15th century and 14th century. Because at this point, and then at this point, they continue to burn witches or so-called witches while they were fighting between each other. So you can imagine in a country like this, there is no much space, even from something else than Roman Catholic views. But France wasn't the only country to be that closed-minded.
Right.
In Spain, it was the same, almost. Spain was a very strong country in history, and they've gone to South America and Middle America, and we can see what they have done there. They crushed everything and everyone under Christianity too. So I think France and Spain was the worst two country with Christianity. But I don't know if there is such a problem with witchcrafting in Spain. I don't, if by any chance someone in chat or someone who views that can let a comment about this, if someone know how do it goes in Spain, I would be curious to know it, but because I tend to think it's kind of the same in Spain too. That in France, I mean, you cannot really be out there with the witchy thing. Probably because of the same reason, but I would like to be sure. I would like to hear about someone who lived in or who knows Spain.
Yeah,
enough.
wasn't there someone in the chat room that was talking about Spain?
Yeah, someone mentioned Spain and Spanish people at some point.
Yeah, where was
so here around, it is difficult, and every path almost crushed under Christianity, which make which kind of there is not much traditional witches, because how can you hold a tradition in these circumstances? How can you pass on to your son or to your daughter if you weren't allowed allowed to talk about it, I think we've lost a lot of our witchcraft knowledge through this. So when I look at country where it wasn't that it wasn't see that as a bad thing, when I look at these countries, and there is a lot still, I'm always kind of fascinated to see how it goes and still go and grow and pass on to people from people. It's something that I like to see. That's probably why I like the voodoo and hoodoo tradition, who managed to continue in spite of slavery. Yeah, I'm amazed by this.
Me too. I think it's wonderful when things are able to have a sense of tradition. But I also see a benefit in sort of expanding tradition. But I feel that there is so much that can be carried within someone's tradition that has been passed down from generation to generation. There's power there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I didn't travel much. So unfortunately, I cannot talk about, with personal experiences of different countries. But even while staying here, I can see a bunch of difference, pinpoint a bunch of difference between the way witchcraft is practiced, is practiced. I don't know.
Practiced.
Thank you. Nowadays, I mean, in the past, we all have history books to take a look into, but right now, differences have to be experienced in the real 3D world to be understood, I suppose. You already go into the chat.
I am.
I didn't read it, so I don't know what happened exactly.
Well, some of it is about me being a Jehovah's Witness in the past, so not a big deal. But Hellbound Heathen was talking about the fact that he knew two Gardnerians who lived in Spain. So obviously there was some magic and at least Wiccan practice going on in Spain. And he mentioned that Gardner's BOS is held in a Spanish bank. He thinks it's still there today. So obviously there was some, Wiccan practices going on in Spain. But obviously done in secret, I imagine. I don't know. Of
course, I maybe, yeah, probably, because they were under, not that far in the past, they were still under a very harsh and cruel government. So yeah, I assume it had to be in secret. But again, Wicca is, I'm sorry, I don't want to be rude, but Wicca is fairly recent. It's a fairly recent tradition, even if it comes from different parts of older and tradition put together. But the Wicca is recent, where the Bruja were old and ancient. And I was looking at Spain, wondering about this old tradition of witchcraft, what it became, and how those things go right now. What's left from this old ancient tradition of witchcraft?
And I wonder how much. I mean, not only Spain, but I'm thinking of like Puerto Rico and some of the other Latin type islands and countries. How much of their magic has some sort of Christian spin on it. You know how hoodoo or voodoo utilizes saints and things like that. I wonder how much the Spanish brujas also incorporated that in order to still practice sort of under the noses of the church. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Obviously, there is, as it has happened in other countries. Obviously, there is tradition who disguised themselves under Christianity thing, and who accept a part of it, because in the end, it's just a different tradition. I mean, Christianity is one views of spiritualities, but they're, in my mind, they're all connected. So why not? Why not?
Right.
Do mix? Why not? And yeah, in fact, every old and ancient tradition exchanged between the ancient Egypt with the ancient Greek and the old Jewish magic, Kabbalistic magic, and all of this exchange already in way back in the past. So it's logical that it still happened today. But about the different tradition, like in Puerto Rico, and I don't know exactly. But again, I would like to hear about this. Unfortunately, there is no one in the chat who can talk.
No, there isn't. But I mean, if we talk about witchcraft around the world and we reference back to speaking to Benebell. Yes.
Yeah.
For a minute there, I totally blanked out her name. I had her face in my mind, but for some reason, a different name came to mind. But that's probably a chat for another time. Wow, that was really strange. Anyway, when we had her on and she was discussing her tradition and the different things that she practiced and how it brought about like aspects, and we were comparing the things that we may call, what did she, the example of a ghost or a tulpa or we were talking about that, how that was even interesting because she's from, was it Taiwan?
I wasn't there at this
time. Oh, that's right. You weren't.
So I missed it, and I didn't manage to look at it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, from where she and the magic she practiced and how it sort of still, there are still those aspects of everything that may be in a European witchcraft or, a witchcraft in America and sort of folk magic or even voodoo. I mean, that we can still say, oh, yes, we have that in our practice. We call it this. And be able to make a connection as to the similar practices. So even though it may look very different on the outside, there are those key elements that are the same, just maybe labeled differently within the practice.
Yeah, I agree. Labels are a very important part of the perceived difference, because we may not call, and we probably won't call, a same event or thing or practice the same way. But in the end, when you deconstruct the whole thing to just keep the practice itself, it's the same thing. Or the belief itself, it's the same thing.
And actually, maybe that part of the conversation we had might not have even been recorded. Was that when we were talking with her after?
We did talk about this after, but I think you had this in the show in the first place.
Maybe not. I don't know. Everything's merging in my head.
I won't say anything about this because it's in my own head. So, so in the end, even in spite of I should say, in spite of the different influences that were forced onto people, and in spite of the different places and the different labels, the different tradition, we still have a lot in common between all the different practices around the globe.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fascinating
It
when
is.
you get it. That's because obviously culture and places and history of the country will have a big impact on the way people practices witchcraft. But anyway, it happens that there is a lot of things in common. That is really interesting, and that tends to prove there is something else
Mm-hmm.
for the skeptical mind. That tends to prove there is much underneath to understand, because how then, if there wasn't anything, how then did we happen to be that connected, that linked all together? Obviously, there is something.
Obviously.
Obviously. Sorry. I'm still sick.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I would have loved to have more people in the chat to share with us their experience, their how they perceive the difference between maybe different paths and different from different places in the world, but there I may be too
Yeah, there
ambitious.
doesn't seem to be much going on. And I understand because obviously, it's the 7th of December, people are getting prepared for the holidays and they may be out
Yeah,
shopping or whatever it is that
yeah,
they're doing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's understandable.
yeah.
I do want to just mention while we have everybody still here that next week we have Aaron Lozano from Turtle
Oh,
Heart Tarot going to be on the show with us next week, and we're going to
oh,
be
that's sweet.
doing, we're going to be doing our readings like we do every other month. So make sure you show up for that. That'll be fun. And then I
Yeah,
think the
that way.
following week's Yule, I believe, right? On the 21st is
Yeah,
the
I
following
think
week.
so.
Yep. And I think we talked about doing a Q&A.
Yeah.
Really laid back Q&A on Yule. So if you have questions, please, I will put up a post on my CricketSong Facebook page and my Lunar Wisdom Facebook page, so that if you have questions you'd like us to answer, or if you show up in chat and ask us questions, we'll answer as many questions as we are able to on Yule. I'm not sure how many people are actually going to show up because they may be celebrating Yule on Yule.
Yeah.
I know we're going to celebrate with my family on the 22nd. So the Philippines, some are hiding. They're using witchcraft in the Philippines, but they're hiding it.
And why is that? I mean, how is it see
In
in the
Philippines,
Philippines?
in the Philippines, how do most of the people see witchcraft? Do they believe that it exists? Are they afraid of it? Do they think it's bullshit?
Or do they think it exists but it should not be practices?
Yeah, like it's
Practicing?
from the devil.
Practiced? Sorry,
They,
I'm really messing with my English today.
do they think it's sinister and is from the
Yeah,
devil and it's evil? How do they view it?
because there is a lot of different reason why people hide their craft.
Mm.
That it can be really believed in the country, but sees as evil, yeah,
Right.
evil or something like it, or just don't believe altogether, like in my in my country.
Hey, Sue.
Oh, from Greece. Oh, hey, Sue.
Quick question, Sue. So witchcraft in Greece, how is witchcraft viewed in Greece? Is it seen as something that you should not practice? Is it seen as something evil from the devil? Is it, what is the feeling about witchcraft, Sue?
Yeah, I've heard there were a bunch of people who are Hellenistic revivalists, which is very interesting in my eyes. But I would like to know from there, what's your perspective on it?
So from the Philippines, Markin says that some do think it does exist and some do think it's evil. And Libby, it's very Catholic. My husband is from the Philippines and he was fine with me being a witch, but his only request was not to tell his mom. She'd be very upset, I guess. Do you know why she'd be upset? Because because he's very Catholic. All right. So yeah.
Okay.
There is Wiccan, Carillion Wiccan, which is a registered religion. They used more on healing witchcraft. And that's Markin, who said he's from the Philippines.
Okay. That's interesting. Catholic in Philippines. Okay.
Yeah, those Catholic missionaries went everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere.
They spread and they crush a lot of things.
Yeah, everywhere. Canada, at least in British Columbia, people are mainly New Age and it's believed in and not really seen as evil. Yeah, see, that's what I'm getting here too. British Columbia. So is that
I don't know.
Is that more East Coast, Raven? Because I know Vancouver is up here, West Coast. Sue says, to be honest, I haven't heard any expressed views on witchcraft. Not one Greek has questioned my pentacle. Huh.
Yeah, that's nice.
I know, that's interesting. West Coast.
Nice.
Okay, so Raven, we're on the same coast. I'm sorry, I forget. I need to write these things down. I should have known that. So yeah, New Agey up here. I feel like on this coast here, it's more of the New Age feeling, the ascension, the awakening, where over in New England, it's more witchy, more, and that's the vibe I get just overall. I don't know.
Here, wearing a pentacle will be seen as a Gothic style. Nothing more. No one will wonder about your path. This is just gonna see as a closest style, and that's it.
That's
so
interesting.
I wear mine out of the out on the open, but no one questioned me as well.
Yeah, they think you're just a goth chick.
Yeah, which I am, but I'm not just that.
Right.
But they don't see it. They don't see any more of it than just a style, and that's it.
Yeah, Libby was saying, that the Catholic Church really destroyed a lot of the culture in the Philippines. The missionaries, yeah. More and more non-Greek friends are coming out as pagans, though. Yeah. Yay!
That doesn't surprise me much because there is a really old and strong tradition in Greece.
Well, you know what, Libby, talking about the state of Washington, speaking to my husband, he said, because it's such a big state, you can go to areas of the state in Washington where it's very Christian. So I think it depends on where we are. And if you are homeschooling, a lot of the homeschooling groups I've noticed, not only here in Washington state, but even in Massachusetts, a lot of the homeschooling groups are Christian because a lot of Christians homeschool. So they take their children out of the secular and submerge them into homeschooling, you know, Christians. But there are, well, at least back where I was in Massachusetts, there was a handful of pagans who homeschooled, and we tended to kind of like stick together. But I guess here in Washington, it depends on what area of the state you are, because my husband did point out there are pockets of like Christian communities in our counties in the state. More and more.
Raven. Yeah.
Gothic.
It makes the two of us. And that's when I started wearing my pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
I even told my family. I did not tell my family. I did not, and I don't plan to. But yeah, no, I did not, because I know it wouldn't be understood. It wouldn't, and I don't care. I don't feel the need to explain myself. I won't justify myself. I don't care. I just don't care. I do what I have to do, and that's it. But still, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that nowadays, in such a modern or so-called modern way of life, many of us aren't able to talk about it if they want to. They cannot. And that's sad to see. There is still such a pressure against the craft, any form of the craft. That's sad, I think.
Yeah.
We should have learned to be more open I don't mind what paths some of my friends or other people are following. I don't mind it. It's not an offense for me.
Right.
I'm very interested into a lot of different paths, in fact, because exchange is the way spirituality grows, I think.
I agree. I like hearing about different paths, different spiritualities, different religions, and why people do what they do, because that always fascinates me, because I find once I find out or understand why people do what they do, it allows me to find common threads. And
Absolutely.
I feel like finding those common threads will bring us closer together as spiritual beings. So
I agree. And we learn about ourselves even through someone else and someone tradition, and we learn to recognize things into us and in the world. So yeah, it's very sad that people comes to be that closed-minded about so much topics, in fact. But witchcraft is just one of the topic we cannot talk about.
I know,
just one,
right?
just one, which is sad. We are supposed to be modern humans. Modern. No kidding, yeah? Modern. People are just as stupid as they were. I personally think. Can magic be successful if a person hiding, casting magic, even self-blessing? Can you help me, CricketSong, please, to understand the question of Martha?
Yeah, I think they're asking if you are hiding, like if you're in the broom closet or you're doing magic when nobody else, hiding it from other people. I think that's what they mean. Can it still be successful?
Yeah.
Even if you're doing
Can I show you? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it can be successful.
Yeah. Most of my practice is held in secret, and that doesn't prevent it to be successful. So yes.
Well, I think, if we think about the witch's pyramid, to be silent is one of the points, or one of the pillars in the pyramid. So I think being silent or being hidden or being quiet about what you're doing is a key to being successful.
Yeah, I think so. I think too. That's partly why it doesn't annoy me to not talk about my path. As you already know, I'm a very to be silent witch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't share much.
So am
Even
I.
yeah, I don't share much. Yeah.
I mean, I may talk about the philosophies and the
Yeah, me too.
theories and the practice, but
But
you
in the
won't
end,
see much of my practice.
same. In the end, I don't share much of what I really do. So yeah, don't mind about being in secrecy, Martin.
Right.
That won't be a problem at all. At all.
So we're coming up to the last couple of minutes of our stream already. It's already
All right.
9:30. I can't believe it. Time is just flying by. And as I was saying, for those of you who showed up late, next week we are going to be doing our stream with Aaron Lozano from Turtle Heart Tarot. We'll be doing readings, so tune in to get a quick reading next week. And the week after that, December 21st, is Yule, and we're going to be doing a Q&A session. So I'm going to put up a post on both my CricketSong and Lunar Wisdom Facebook pages, and I encourage you to leave a question that you'd like us to answer, or show up and ask your questions. I think we're going to be pretty open about whatever you ask. I mean, there may be questions we don't answer, but in general, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can within an hour. Yeah. And then I think that brings us to the end of December. No, there's one more show at the end of December. I can't remember what we have scheduled for that, but yeah. So
We will
that's what's
take a
coming
look
up.
after that. We will take a look after the show.
That's what's coming up. If you haven't joined Weird Witches Witchcraft, if you haven't joined that Facebook page, I encourage you to do so. We have lots of wonderful conversations going on over there, so go check it out. And I think that's it. Check out my website. I have a blog. Go check out my blog. I think that's it. I think that's it. So what do you say, Obsidian?
Mais j'espère que ça n'aura pas été trop brouillon pour vous. Ça a été un sujet un peu difficile à couvrir et comme j'ai un peu de mal ces temps-ci avec mon anglais, j'ai dû être un peu chiante à suivre. J'espère quand même que vous n'aurez pas été trop lassés et j'espère surtout vous revoir la semaine prochaine. À bientôt, bye bye.
What the heck is she saying? If you know what she's saying, I'd love for you to let me know over on CricketSong's Facebook page. If you know what Obsidian Fire says at the beginning of our show and or the end of our show, share with me over on CricketSong's Facebook page. So until next week, everyone, I love you all. Bye. Blessed be.